I know we talked about this in Las Vegas, but about 20 years, 20 years as a head coach. Mm-hmm. How much has the game changed in those 20 years?
The game kind of turns a full circle. So when I first started as a head coach, we were trying to play fast on offense. Larry Fedora was our coordinator, and Larry and I were together at Baylor, and we talked about playing fast a lot, but our head coach then didn't want to play fast. And then it kind of came back around, and we did that, and we've had a lot of success doing that with different styles of defense. The defensive here has always changed. And then we slowed down a little bit, then we started playing really fast, and then we slowed down a little bit, and so that's turned a full circle. The tight ends being in the offense, out of the offense, back in the offense now. Defensive going from 4-down defenses to a lot of 3 downs to now multiple defense. It hasn't really changed much. It just kind of turns a full circle. But we've tried to stay in front of it the best we could. Mm-hmm. But you have to base that on the type of players that you have.
You have seemed to always done a really good job on the offensive side of the ball, especially, of staying that one step ahead, forcing defenses to change to what you're doing instead of vice versa. Is that one thing that maybe you're most proud of in your head coaching tenure so far?
I still go back that I'm convinced the RPO was originated right here. People in the SEC get credit for it, but we can go back to video that we were running RPOs 2 years before they ever got into the SEC, but that doesn't make good for national media. We've stayed out in front offensively because I'm an offensive guy. It allows me to spend more time and actually know what I'm doing. I have learned a lot about defense in the last 6 or 8 years. Not enough to actually coach it, enough to maybe help some. And I think that as we've transitioned that way, Jim Knowles and I started to work together his last few years here. Jim was highly intelligent, as we know, and would listen and make adjustments. But I think that my offensive background has helped us in that area. But defensively, that's the area that we really want to improve in, because whether we like it or not, the committee that picks the playoff teams, they want you to be good on defense. They favor defense more than offense.
I think it was Sonny Dykes in Las Vegas got the question about 4 down versus 3 down. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting, his answer was, you would think if you're playing 3 down, it's easier to recruit depth than it is 4 down. But you're talking about a specific difference in the type of player between the two, aren't you?
It is. It's actually a little more difficult in the 3 down because of the way you're playing your defensive linemen. I don't think anybody would argue that Iowa State has perfected that side of it, and they've been able to get players that fit that system. When Matt Rule was at Baylor, they played it, and they had a real unusual player. His name slips me, but he played in for him. He's playing in the NFL now, and he allowed them to be really good in that 3 down set. We want to play both here. I would like to be multiple on 1st and 2nd down in the 3 down and 4 down. The personnel at times can keep you from doing that. But I feel like now that we have the correct personnel to be able to play both.
You've got a lot of talent returning on both sides of the ball, but let's stay defense here. With Nick Martin's breakout year last year, let me just start there. Was that something that you saw? You saw this guy has this kind of a potential? Because that was a crazy good year last year.
We really liked Nick in high school. He was way undersized for what people think you should recruit a linebacker to be at this level. But he played really hard, and he was violent. He would strike you in high school. And when he got here, Coach Glass was able to put about 30 pounds on him, and obviously Nick is a worker. He loves to play football, and he kept that violent personality. I don't think anybody would have seen 140 or 50 tackles coming from a guy that didn't play much the year before. We've been very fortunate the last 4 or 5 years with Malcolm and then what Nick's bringing to the table. He's a special player at this level.
Generally speaking, defensively, though, you've mentioned this more than once. you're going to have to tackle better as a team than last year to have the success that you want, won't you?
We didn't tackle very well early in the year, but I told the team that was my fault. I protected them a little bit more than I should have, and we got into the first 2 or 3 games of the year, and we didn't tackle very well. And I should have known better from the fact that you can't play in a game if you don't practice the same way. We've heard that all of our lives, but it's very true. For some reason, I thought that we could get away with it. I was so driven on making sure that we were healthy in the first game, and we didn't tackle very much, and it showed. Our tackling improved about game 4 or 5, and we tackled pretty well for the rest of the season. So my goal this year is to tackle really well in game 1. In defense, in a sense, if you tackle and get them down, you don't drop coverage. Force offenses to run 8, 9, 10, 11 plays in a drive, and in most cases the offenses are going to mess something up and they're going to set themselves back.
Overall, with such an experienced team coming back, a lot of the pluses are obvious, but when you have an experienced team like this, what are the concerns?
The concerns are them to be complacent. In the summer, Rob Glass handles that, so that's not a concern of mine. Now my job is to make sure over the next 15 days they're not complacent until we start to back off a little bit to get ready to play in the first game. We'll have to put a lot of work in over the next 10 days in the way that we're going to handle the team to get them ready to play in the first game, because we have a difficult non-conference schedule, a very physical non-conference schedule. And for that reason, the maturity helps us because we can force feed them, and we didn't have that luxury the last few years. We can get them caught up really quick and then give us an opportunity to back off when we need to, closer to the game.
Alan Bowman, he's been around for a long time. What do you expect Alan to be better at this year than maybe he has been in his career?
Our system has always been driven by quarterback play. Even back when Fedora was here when we first started, everything was driven by quarterback play. And it's difficult to come in our offense as a quarterback and play without much experience. I'm looking to see quite a bit of improvement just because of his familiarity with our offense and the way that it's orchestrated. I look to see the same thing with Rangel. Rangel has done some good things at times, but he hasn't had a chance to get very familiar with it. Bowman's played a lot now for us, and I think he understands our system. Quarterbacks that understand our system on offense generally will have really good years.
2 more. One, obviously, you used the word a lot with Ollie last year, humble, keeping him humble, and given everything that he's gone through to this point. And there's been a little time now between the incident to now. What are you seeing from him right now? I know camp's just open, but what are you seeing from him?
So, in some cases, I said this in Las Vegas, that Ollie is very fortunate that he ran into a terrible situation and got out and didn't hurt anybody. Didn't hurt himself and didn't hurt anybody else. And I think it made him aware of things that could happen. He's going to do some volunteer work and things that we've asked him to do to make him aware of the danger, and the people that have gone through that have been tragically injured and had family members. They've lost family members. And at times, if we can make terrible mistakes in life and get out of it without anybody being tragically injured or lost, it gives us a chance to learn from that and make us better. I think he understands that. Now, only time will tell. That's on him. Football-wise, he has to practice harder and be more physical than he has and was last year in order for us to be successful. We're going to hang our hat on what he does. Now, defenses may choose to put everybody up there and just stop the run. That's fine. We have enough weapons that we can throw passes. But our goal is to force him to do that. We're going to let him run. So he has to practice extremely hard for the next 15 days. He has to get hit in practice. He has to take care of the football and put himself in a position that he did last year. He did that last year with nobody knowing who he was. And he has to stay and practice the same way. And I've told him, I got to see Barry Sanders and Thurman Thomas do it. They did it every day. There was never a doubt by the way they practice, and he needs to practice the same way.
Last one. New look, new schools in the league, a new energy, and that energy, you can look to one guy, at least in Las Vegas, and it was Deion Sanders with Colorado, and he had a very special word when he described you. He called you a legend. Not everybody gets called a legend by a guy who kind of knows what he's talking about. I mean, how did that hit you?
People started texting me about it, but it was interesting. I don't know, Coach. When we went to Phoenix to the meetings, one of the things, I'd actually forgot about it, and then when we go to the meetings, I realized he was in there, and I thought this will be interesting to see how these meetings go with him being in here. In the meetings, very different than what is in front of the lights. Asked good questions, listened, joined in conversations, and he didn't get to the position that he is now by not being a pretty smart guy. He's a genius in marketing, in promoting. And the one thing that I've noticed when I read about him, I read things that he says, which I do all the other coaches, is that he's ultra competitive, but he's in his own way and he's going to do things the way he wants to do it. It may be very unusual and some people do not want to accept that, but from a distance looking, because obviously I'm not in their camp, he has the ability to get people to want to migrate toward him. He's been that way all of his life. So that was an interesting comment that he made, but without pumping my own tires up, the guy does a lot of reading and research, in my opinion, because you very seldom see people ask him a question that he can't comment on in an intelligent manner without a teleprompter. So he generally been around the block and knows what he's talking about.
We're out of time, but I want to ask you this one last one. Success for this team this year, what does that look like in the end?
So offensively, we need to function and just do what we've done. We're going to be better than we've been in quite a while if we stay healthy. We haven't been healthy at wide receiver in 3 or 4 years. We've struggled health-wise in the offensive line off and on over the last 4 years. That's not easy for us at Oklahoma State. I feel better about our depth. I feel better where we're at from a health standpoint. Defensively, like we talked about earlier, if we can avoid dropping coverage, we can get in our gaps and tackle and get guys down, we'll be just fine. I'm really excited about our special teams. We've got a number of guys returning that have covered, and we have good returners. Joe Forte's done a great job in the special teams area. Now we brought in Sean Snyder, brings in 30 years of experience. And our players have really enjoyed those two guys coaching them. So I think we're in a good position. We need the ball to bounce our way a couple times. But if we're in good condition and guys will stay humble and play hard, we'll be just fine.